Barbour, and I am here to present Tea Time with Ruthmere today. You're gonna have to forgive me for my hair. I know it's very frizzy. That's just the humid weather that we are currently experiencing. But with that, today's Tea Time topic, as some of you probably already know, is going to be Elkhart History Trivia. Now, Elkhart History Trivia is going to be, we are going to divide it into 4 different sections. It's going to be divided by the time period of each section. So I will read out the sections before I go into each new one so that you know what time period we're dealing with exactly. So how this is going to work, I will read a question. In between each question, I'm going to talk about something in this room that I'm in. We are currently in the the morning room, Elizabeth's morning room on the 2nd floor of Ruthmere, and there's a lot of beautiful things in here that I can talk about. So I'll just be doing that in between the questions. Now, when I ask the question, all you have to do if you want to participate is answer in the comments. The first person to answer is the winner of that certain point. And then after that, when it's all over, I'll stop the video, I will take up the points, and then if you are the winner, I will get in contact with you to let you know how you win your prize. So the first place winner is going to be getting a $20 gift certificate to our gift shop, which is really great. If you haven't seen our other video that Joy Olson made the other day of kind of showing off the different stuff we have in our gift shop right now, we have some beautiful things that are women's history related, like the 100th anniversary of women getting the vote. We have some really beautiful objects, and we have some new tea related items in the gift shop that she is also putting in there for sale. So there are really great options for everybody in the gift shop right now. And then the second place winner also is going to get a gift certificate for a $10 certificate for the gift shop. So with that, I am going to go ahead and get started, read the first question, and I will repeat it a few times so that everybody can hear it. And again, anybody can participate. Just put your answer in the comments and we will go ahead and get started. So our first section is going to be between the time of the founding of Elkhart through 1861. So this is very early Elkhart history, and I think the first question is pretty easy. The first one is going to be, who was the Native American chief that Elkhart founder Dr. Havilah Beardsley purchased land from? Pretty easy question. All right, again, so that was, who was the Native American chief that the founder, Dr. Havilah Beardsley, purchased the land of Elkhart from? So I'll give you a little bit of time to think about that. I will talk about some of the stuff in this room. So I am in Elizabeth's morning room. This is a little tea set that I am using to have my tea for tea time today. Obviously, I am having some strawberry pomegranate tea. And behind the tea set are these beautiful beaded flowers. Now, these are kind of an artifact that women would make back then in the 1920s or so, just as a hobby. So these flowers are actually, we believe they are made by Elizabeth herself. Hey, we have some answers. Good job, Shireen Dial. I hope I pronounced your name right. She got the right answer with Pierre Moran. That is the correct answer on that one. So, fun fact, Havilah Beardsley was actually the second person to attempt to purchase this land from Pierre Moran. There was another man named Richard Godfrey. He disputed Havilah's claim for purchasing the land on the guise that he gave Pierre Moran a down payment of a horse and a cart, and he intended to pay the rest of it later. Now, Havilah actually won, but then he gave Richard Godfrey a piece of land that he thought was equivalent to the worth of the horse and cart, which, you never know. If that was probably not very much. All right, so the second question. When Havilah Beardsley first arrived in the area that would become Elkhart, it was a simple village indicated by its one single post office. What was the name of the village? So again, when Havilah Beardsley first arrived in the area that would become Elkhart, it was a simple village indicated by its one post office. What was the name of the village. Now, there have been signs around town, I know I've seen, that indicate what the name of this village was. I know there's a few things named after it, so that kind of gives you a hint. And I have to apologize, this light is making my face like glow like a ghost, so sorry about that. But okay, so let's talk about something else in this room in the meantime. So I know over there we have our beautiful, we already got an answer. Great job. Pulaski Village. Yep, that was the answer to that question. I'll go back to the Veiled Woman in a second. But yes, Pulaski was the name of the original village that was the land of Elkhart before it became Elkhart. So great job again, Shireen. Awesome. All right, so in 1854, this is number 3, 1854, native Philo Morehouse founded the first blank in Elkhart. Philo Morehouse in 1854 founded the first blank in Elkhart. And a hint, it's a type of business. So yeah, the first blank in Elkhart was founded by Philo Morehouse in 1854. All right, so going back to the Veiled Woman here. So this is one of the pieces in our collection from the 19th century. We actually do not know who the artist is, but it's a very common piece of, or type of artwork from the 19th century. These veiled women often were supposed to be an indication of mourning. And that's M-O-U-R-N-I-N-G. So kind of a sad piece usually, but we think this one is actually a veiled woman on her wedding day. So this one's actually a little happier than what most would be. But there are a lot of very famous examples of veiled art pieces that you can see if you Google it online. There's a lot of very beautiful ones, and it's one of my personal favorite types of artwork. And I'll actually get a little closer so you can see some of the beautiful details on this sculpture. All right, I don't see a right answer yet for this question. Philo Morehouse founded the first blank in Elkhart in 1854. Oh, those are my answers, don't look at those. 1854, and I will say the answer in about 5, 4, throw out a guess if you don't know, 3, 2, 1, and the answer is bank. Philo Morehouse founded the first bank in Elkhart in 1854. Okay, so our next section is going to be 1861 to 1890. That is the next section we are going to do. Number 1 question from this section: what job industry led to the Elkhart population more than doubling in size between 1870 to 1880? What job industry led to the Elkhart population more than doubling in size between 1870 and 1880? So think about all of the industries during the late 19th century that were really starting to come into their own. It's a common industry that we have everywhere. So that will help you kind of think about what it might be. All right, so while you think about that question, we'll go back over here. I'm going to talk a little bit about this photograph right here. So this photograph, as you can see, we have Elizabeth and there's Albert. Elizabeth and Albert, the owners of Ruthmere when it was first built. And this is their dog. He was a Chinese chow named Wang. He's got a nice little bow tie there. I've heard, based on stories, that the dog was not always very nice to anybody other than his owners. But story goes, he liked to go down to the Baldwin building, which was the Ziesel's company, I think is what it was called. And he liked to ride the elevators up and down. The dog liked to ride the elevators, which is really weird. But I really love this photo because I kind of love the way that Albert is like lurking in the background. It's really funny. But yeah, so that's a really cool photo that we have of them. It's kind of towards the end of their lives, but you can very clearly see some of the Ruthmere architecture in there. Okay, so still do not yet have the business that led to the Elkhart industry more than doubling in size between 1870 and 1880. So I will kind of give a hint there. You're close with cars. You are close. It is a form of transportation. So if that gives you any hint. a form of transportation, 1870s and 1880s. And if nobody says it, in 5, 4, 3, hey, railroads! Yay, Steve Barton, railroads! Yay, okay, we got it, cool. All right, so good job, Steve. All right, so number 2 for the section of 1861 to 1890, we have the next question. A large Civil War monument was erected on Main Street in downtown Elkhart in 1889 and moved to Rice Cemetery in 1928. I don't know, you might have seen pictures of this huge monument. And what Civil War soldier, what fallen Civil War soldier is this monument kind of dedicated to? What soldier is featured on the monument? And I will give you a hint. He is related to some of the earliest families in Elkhart. And you might have seen his name on other things around as well. So again, a large Civil War monument was erected on Main Street in downtown Elkhart in 1889 and moved to Rice Cemetery in 1928. What fallen Civil War soldier is featured on this monument? So, yes, give you guys a second to think about that. All right, so next I'm going to talk about this beautiful chandelier on the ceiling. This is an original chandelier, and you'll notice, if you've ever been to Ruthmere, you'll know that a lot of the ceilings have beautiful paintings on them. And this one does not, but that's because of this chandelier. I mean, you can tell, based on the way the chandelier is designed, it has a lot of beautiful light kind of cascading out in shadows across this big blank space. And I think that's why they did not put any artwork on this ceiling. That light piece was actually kind of intended to be the art on the ceiling. And it's very beautiful. It has nice crystals hanging from it. I'll get a little bit of a closer look at that. Now, if any of you have ever lived in a kind of historic home, you might know that cleaning a chandelier like this is kind of a pain in the butt. And we have to thank Joy Olson, our collections manager, for all the work she did cleaning this room. Before she even knew we weren't going to be open, she spent a lot of time getting this room nice and clean for us. So, okay. So who was the fallen Civil War soldier who the monument that is now in Rice Cemetery dedicated to? I will say the answer in 5, 4, 3, 2, 1. Okay. Lieutenant Frank Baldwin was his name. Now, fun fact, Frank Baldwin was actually Elizabeth Beardsley's brother. So Elizabeth Beardsley of Ruthmere, the Civil War soldier monument that's in Rice Cemetery is dedicated to her fallen brother. He was a teenager when he went off and died in the Civil War. So his father, Silas Baldwin, went later on and had this piece commissioned as a memorial for all of the soldiers in the area that actually fell during the Civil War. Silas himself did not live to see the monument completed, unfortunately, but it was dedicated to Lieutenant Frank Baldwin. So next time you're in Rice Cemetery, you can kind of keep an eye out for that and have a look. And we actually have a picture of him upstairs, too, on the 3rd floor, which you will see next week at our tour of the 3rd floor. So, for tea time. All right, so the next question, number 3 for the 1861 to 1890 section. What was the first invention by C.G. Kahn, the founder of the band instrument industry in Elkhart, that led to the eventual creation of his business? Now, we don't have a lot of people participating in this right now, but it's still really kind of fun to have this as a learning opportunity. So even if you're not playing along, it's still cool to learn anything. So I appreciate it if you're watching. So again, that question is, what was the first invention by C.G. Kahn, the founder of the band instrument industry in Elkhart, that led to the eventual creation of his business? So that's C.G. Kahn, which is a very well-known band instrument company. I think it's merged with a different one now. No, he did not invent the saxophone, unfortunately. He did make some instruments, but it was actually a much smaller invention that he first made. So think about that. Yeah, it was not an instrument, I'll tell you that much. He did not invent an instrument. So Yes, Steve Barton. Good job. Yes, Steve Barton. The invention was actually a rubber mouthpiece. So how this happened was C.G. Kahn actually got into a fight with somebody, which cut his lip really bad. So he was having trouble playing, I think it was a cornet was his instrument. And he actually made this little rubber mouthpiece that he would put on his instrument and allow him to play it. And that he kind of made a whole business out of making that because everybody wanted one because it made it so much easier to play the instrument. And that just bloomed into a whole band instrument industry that we now have still in Elkhart, just from this little rubber mouthpiece he made for his cut lip from getting in a fight. So that just goes to show you what can happen if you're resourceful. All right, so the last question from 1861 to 1890. This is actually also involving C.G. Kahn. So C.G. Kahn, the father of Elkhart's band instrument industry, also founded what other still existing business in Elkhart in 1889? So C.G. Kahn not only started the band instrument industry, he started another business in Elkhart that is still existing to this day. And I guarantee you see it all over the place, especially on the internet. So C.G. Kahn founded one other business in Elkhart in 1889. So give you guys a moment to think about that, and I will show off something else in the room in the meantime. So let's see. We'll have a look at this painting here. So this painting is of little Ruth Beardsley. She was the only daughter of Albert and Elizabeth Beardsley. They only had the one child, and that was Ruth. Sorry, I'm trying to read the comments and do this at the same time. It's not easy. So this piece was actually painted by a woman named, hey, there we go. We got ourselves an answer. So I'll finish talking about this real quick. This was painted by a woman named Lucille Cook. She was a Hoosier artist, and she actually painted a few more portraits that we have too. But yeah, it's a very lovely piece of work of Ruth in this black oval of mourning. So yes, Shireen, we got another answer from Shireen. She said it is the Elkhart Truth, and that is true. C.G. Kahn actually did found the Elkhart Truth. And though it was founded in 1889, it had a lot of other competitors, but eventually it either bought or weeded the rest of them out. And since 1920, it has been Elkhart's only primary newspaper. It's the city of Elkhart, not the county. So yeah, since 1920, we have had the Elkhart Truth. And I had no idea that the band instrument guy also founded the Truth. That's kind of weird. But there you go. All right, so our next section is going to be 1891 to 1914. So we are getting a little bit more. We are officially entered into the Ruthmere era. Don't worry, not all the questions are about Ruthmere. So number one, the first motion picture in Elkhart was shown in 1896 in this famous Elkhart building, which was torn down in 1986. So the first motion picture was shown in 1896 in this building, which was eventually torn down in 1986. It is a very, very famous, large Elkhart building. So, think on that. Okay. All right, so anything else in this room I can talk about? Oh yes, so this case over here, we actually have some, I believe some of these were actually Elizabeth Beardsley's. Hey, there we go. We got an answer already. You guys are great at this. I was worried some of these would be too hard. You did a pretty good job. So, yes, Shireen and Jan. Jan actually got it first. It was the Buckland Opera House. I will accept Buckland Theater because it's the same thing, basically. So, yeah, the Buckland Opera House was where the first motion picture in Elkhart was shown. All right, number two, 3 men partnered together to form Miles Medical Company in 1895. Dr. Franklin Miles, George E. Compton, and what other person? So again, 3 men partnered together to form Miles Medical Company in 1895. Dr. Franklin Miles, George E. Compton, and what other person? And I will give you a hint. I am in his house, if that helps. Okay, so back to this stuff over here. I feel bad. I start talking about stuff and I get sidetracked. So yeah, this stuff in this case, we have a couple of beautiful brooches. I get made fun of by my coworkers because I always mispronounce the word brooch, and I say brooch because that's what it's spelled like. Then we have this beautiful fan. Definitely indications of kind of stuff that I'm reading the answers again. The kind of stuff that Elizabeth would have actually had. So I am going to take Doug Beardsley's answer on this, although as a Beardsley, that seems a little unfair, but I'll take it. just teasing. So yes, it was actually A.R. Beardsley. There's a lot of Beardsleys, so it was a little too broad to just say Beardsley. But Doug Beardsley got it right with A.R. Beardsley. So, okay, our next question. What English architect was responsible for designing Ruthmere, along with several other buildings and homes throughout Elkhart? Very famous architect. He designed a lot of houses in the area, a lot of the major buildings. He designed the first Elkhart High School, the first Elkhart Hospital, the General Hospital, the first building it was in, he designed that. There's houses all over even this block that he designed. Dawn Fisher, she got it. E. Hill Turnock. I knew that one wouldn't take long. That was a pretty easy one. A lot of people around here own Turnock homes, so I wouldn't have been surprised. I think Jan Bloomer's was a typo. She said Turbo Kick, but I think it was supposed to be Turnock. Don't worry, we all do that. Okay, so the next question is going to be number 4. In 1912, Elkhart had a very famous visitor make a stop during his presidential campaign. Who was it? Again, in 1912, Elkhart had a very famous visitor make a stop during his presidential campaign. Who was it? Now, I'll give you a hint on this one. It was not the person who won the election in 1912, but still a very famous person. We have photos of this guy making his stop in Elkhart. So again, 1912, very famous visitor make a stop in Elkhart during his presidential campaign. Not the winner of the campaign, but he had been very famous for his previous political actions. No right answers so far. I see FDR and Taft. I don't remember when Taft was president, but I know that's too early for FDR. It's not Taft. Keep thinking on it. Okay. Keep thinking about it. You are right, though. It is a person who was president. Oh, Steve Barton. Steve Barton got it. Okay. Good job, Steve. It was indeed Teddy Roosevelt. Every time I get up to start talking about something, somebody gets the answer right. So, great job. Yes, there was a lot of really good answers there, but nope, it was Teddy Roosevelt. Steve Barton got it. Great job, Steve. Okay, so, all right, we are moving into the final section. We have had really good answers so far. You guys are doing such a great job, and thank you for bearing with me. I know I'm talking a lot, but that's how this works. So, the last section is going to be 1915 to present. I say present very loosely because it doesn't really go that recently. I think the latest it goes is like the 1940s. But still, this is the most recent era of questions. So, number 1, the Lerner Theater was built in 1924 and has had 3 different names. The Lerner, which is what it started as and what it is now. The Elko, which is what it was for probably the most time, and that's what it was before it became the Lerner again recently. But it had one other name between 1931 and 1933. So this is a difficult one. I will be impressed if people get this. So again, the Lerner Theater was built in 1924, and it has had 3 different names. The Lerner, as it started and as it is now. the Elko, which is what it was before it became the Learner again in the present day, and then one other name it had between 1931 and 1933. So it only had this name for a brief period of time. And it had this name because it was bought out by this company for a very short amount of time, and then it went out of business again. That was the era of the Great Depression, so it makes sense that a lot of businesses were struggling during that time, just as they are now, funny enough. So I don't see the right answer yet, so we'll wait on that for a second. So I do want to talk a little bit about this room. Now this is the morning room, as you can see. This is a room that, a hint on the company that bought them. I don't know how to do that with that. I don't know if it was the actual, it is a famous name of a famous TV company, but I don't know if it was the same famous company, if that makes any sense. It begins with a W, I'll tell you that. It begins with a W. So this room, being Elizabeth's morning room, this was kind of her personal sitting room. Only her, like, very close and personal friends would have been invited in this room. She would have taken tea in here. She would have ran her business in here, which was basically running the household. That was her responsibility. So planning for meals, planning for parties, all that kind of stuff, that is what she would have been doing in this room, planning for travel. And hey, Jan Bloomer got the answer. Great job. Yes. I can see some people were probably Googling it and then getting back to me, which is fine, That's not against the rules. Can't stop you from doing that. But yes, Jan Bloomer got it. It was the Warner Theater for about 2 years. Kelly Laughlin said, is this the room with the mirror on the ceiling? No, it's actually not. As I mentioned before, they have this chandelier on the ceiling. Did not paint anything on the ceiling in here because they did not want to, they wanted this chandelier to kind of stand on its own as the artwork because of the way the shadows go out. So, good question though. Yeah, feel free to ask me any questions about the room we're in. I know not everybody here likes trivia, so. Okay, so the next question. In 1960, this restaurant became the first of its kind built in Elkhart. It still exists in the same Main Street location today. Again, in 1960, this restaurant became the first of its kind built in Elkhart. It still exists in the same Main Street location today. Very well-known business. This shouldn't be, is that one of the Tiffany lamps? Nope. Nope, we do not have any Tiffany lamps in this room. All of our Tiffany lamps that we have in the house are actually on the first floor. So we have one in the dining room and then a couple in the library downstairs. And we also actually have a Tiffany window in the garage. People don't see that very much. Brendan Tyson, Buller, you got it. It was McDonald's. That McDonald's on Main Street. It was the first of its kind in Elkhart in 1960. And funny enough, the guy I mentioned earlier, Philo Morehouse, he was the guy who founded the first bank in Elkhart. His house was actually there where that McDonald's parking lot is. They tore it down. The curator told me, Burger King, the curator told me, sorry, I was reading the comments, that his house actually wasn't in great condition before they tore it down. So you don't feel so bad, but still, that McDonald's is here today because Philo Morehouse's house is no longer there. But we do actually have one of his furniture pieces over at the Havilah Beardsley house. So if you ever get a chance to visit, you can always go check that out. All right. We have a couple of pop culture questions. So if you are good with old movies, old TV shows, these are the questions for you. And some kind of cool little bits of trivia. Number 3, what former Elkhart resident would grow up to be an Academy Award nominated movie star, starring in movies such as The Egg and I and the Ma and Pa Kettle films. So again, what former Elkhart resident would grow up to be an Academy Award nominated movie star, starring, hold the phone up a little, can't see the top of my head. Oh, it's frizzy, that's why I'm hiding it. but that's okay. Unless you meant the top of an art piece, I don't know. What former Elkhart resident would grow up to be an Academy Award nominated movie star, starring in movies such as The Egg and I and the Ma and Pa Kettle films? So, these are some old movies, I believe, before my time. Yes, I know I'm a millennial. I apologize on behalf of my people. But yes, The Egg and I and Ma and Pa Kettle films. So, pretty major person. I'd never heard of her again, but this is something that I think a lot of people probably have heard of her. Okay, so again, talking about this room a little bit more. This was Elizabeth's morning room. She actually picked this spot very specifically because she wanted to be kind of in the same spot that Havilah Beardsley was standing when he decided he wanted to build his mills in this area. So she wanted to be on this side of the house specifically and have this as her morning room. So that's kind of a cool little piece of trivia. And Shireen actually got the question right. So Marjorie Main. I don't believe that's her real name, but she was an Elkhart resident who actually went on to become an Academy Award nominated film actress. So that's pretty cool. All right, next question is also a pop culture question. What 1941 Elkhart High School graduate went on to star as Danny Thomas's wife on the television show Make Room for Daddy? And it was later called The Danny Thomas Show. Again, what 1941 Elkhart High School graduate went on to star as Danny Thomas's wife on the television show Make Room for Daddy, which was later called The Danny Thomas Show? So, yes. So again, you can kind of see, as I was talking about before, with this being the spot that Elizabeth wanted to build her side of the house, her morning room, you can really see the rivers very nicely from here, and our beautiful front lawn. A little too far off to see our lovely tulip bed that's just around the corner over there, unfortunately, but yeah. So, any ideas on that last question? Again, that's another major Hollywood star that lived in Elkhart. That was in Make Room for Daddy. She was the wife of Danny Thomas. I'll give you a few more seconds to think about that. So we have a fake bird cage in this room as well. We do have photos that show they probably did have bird cages in the house at some point. This kind of bird cage is not recommended for birds because it's very small, but it's very pretty. And that's kind of the point, I think, and that's why we have a fake bird, not a real one. Kind of stand back and give a nice broad sweep of this room. So over there is Elizabeth's actual room and her nice large closet. Now Elizabeth has a huge closet. It's very expansive, and I think every girl kind of wishes that they could have a closet this size. I don't see the right answer yet. We have these beautiful shoes. Hey, Jan Bloomer got the answer. Good job. So yes, Jean Hagen. Jean Hagen was an Elkhart High School graduate who went on to star in the show Make Room for Daddy, later the Danny Thomas Show. And actually a fun fact about this character, she was the first character ever to be killed off in a family sitcom, ever. So her character Margaret was the first character ever to be killed off in a family sitcom, which is kind of a momentous thing. And the reason they killed her off, as they do in many shows like Roseanne, I know is another example, is because she didn't want to be on the show anymore. They were trying to write her off in a very simple, clean way, so they killed off her character. So it's kind of a fun little bit of trivia, not Elkhart related, but now you know. All right, my voice is getting hoarse. You guys are doing a great job. We are on the last question. So, this Elkhart industry began in 1935 when Wilbur J. Schultz began operations in the first factory on Harrison Street. Our last question. This Elkhart industry began in 1935 when Wilbur J. Schultz began operations in the first factory on Harrison Street. So while you guys think on that, I'm going to take a sip of my tea because I haven't had any of it yet. So, strawberry pomegranate, which I've been told by our tea expert, Joy Olson, is very great for the springtime. It's a very sweet, fruity tea. It's not manufactured housing. It's not Schultz Homes. I will accept that answer, Steve Barton. Mobile homes, RVs. The RV industry began in 1935 when Wilbur J. Schultz began his operations in the first factory on Harrison Street. All right, so there's kind of clear winners here, but I will get back to you. I'll get in contact with the winners. Again, sorry for how frizzy my hair is, and thank you guys so much for participating. This was really fun. Thank you for listening to me talk at you for 20 minutes. Might have been more than that, I don't know. But you can tune in again for tea time next week. Our next topic is actually going to be a tour of the third floor, which I will be doing with Joy Olson. We do not include, oh, thank you, Carolyn. We do not include the third floor in our regular tour. So it's going to be a very exclusive thing to be able to get to see up there. And there is actually a lot up there to see. So it's going to be kind of cool. We have artwork and all sorts of cool stuff to show off. So again, that's going to be 2 o'clock, 2 p.m. Next week is our next tea time. All right. Thank you so much again for joining us. See you later.